this is an opportunity to show leadership. And of course, that's why we're all involved in politics, the politics of the union or the politics of our country, because we want to lead. We've got a vision for a better world out there, a world that we want to create where workers do have a fair day at work. But we know that what we need is strong unions and a strong Labour government to achieve that progressive agenda. And therefore, without the mandate coming from the people, and let's face it, with a first past the post system, the mandate only comes from a small proportion of the people. And what we've seen is that curve of less and less people engaging in that political system. So I want a new energy injected into our electoral processes in our country where people feel involved, part of, and are able to give voice and have a fair voice. The reality of governments today and over the last few decades is that they've been formulated in a very small handful of seats, and therefore in those seats the electorate clearly has a lot of power in order to choose the government, and how they vote does sway the way that the government is formed. And we just think back to 2017, where we know that had we got a PR system and a progressive alliance with other parties, we would have seen a Labour government in place. And my goodness, what a difference that would have made. We certainly would have had Theresa May and her flawed government, and we certainly wouldn't have had Boris Johnson and the atrocious government, which is crushing trade unions day by day. So this really does matter. But what it also does to the Labour movement and the Labour Party, instead of just targeting a few electorates so that we're slightly nicer than the Tories in those seats to get those policies through in order to win the franchise in that middle ground, centre ground politics, enables us, it frees us up to have a radical agenda which is relevant for the time, but also to be reforming for the future. And I think that's what we as activists across the trade union movement and Labour Party want to see, a Labour agenda which is about workers' rights, is about the future, it's about the transformation of our communities, it is about fairness. And then we can do some really bold things and start shifting the system. If we think about politics in our country, it isn't really since the 1945 government where we have seen real radical reform occur, and yet today we hold on to those wins. If we think about the houses for heroes which Bevan built, but he also created the NHS in that same government. One minister was able to do that. Now, just imagine if Labour is freed up to bring in those progressive policies that we want to see again, perhaps universal basic income, a wealth tax, looking at how we challenge the institutions of state and reform them so that actually they work for you. We can bring constitutional reform. We can then rebuild our NHS, rebuild our public services, invest in the people that really matter to us. So this is why an new electoral pact is really important, which brings in a new system. Now, I always had a couple of concerns, I have to say, about PR. One was that you would lose the constituency link. Well, I think we've seen that being resolved in places like Scotland. So we've now been able to move on and find that resolution, because it's absolutely vital that elected representatives do have a connection with the community rather than just the party, because I think it grounds us. And sometimes we have to do what our communities want, which sometimes is slightly out of kilter with the party machine. And that's important because people elect people to have a voice in Westminster. So it does make sense that we pull on the opportunities to have that constituency link. The other concern I used to have was that it allow extreme parties to get a franchise in our political system. But saying we've got the most extreme party now running our country, it gives every reason why we now need to move forward and get rid of them and use every mechanism we can. If we think about the policies this government have brought in around deporting people to Rwanda, my goodness, it sends chills down my back. And we've got that on the electoral system that we've got, on a first past the post system. So of course we are going to have to win power on a first past the post system, because the Tories aren't going to shift on this agenda. But as soon as we win that franchise, we have got to make sure that we never go back to the opportunity of these right-wing individuals who are absolutely destroying our country. And if you think they've done that now, just think what will happen if they win the next election. So I would really encourage you to really get stuck into this agenda. Make sure you do vote for that motion 102 to go right to the top of your list at your conference, and really engage in that debate. Lift people's sides, that this isn't some dry, boring issue about, you know, some technical system. This is about our future and opportunity. And I'm sure that as trade unionists, you can raise the sights of your members across the country about their opportunity, because the biggest sadness of our electoral system as it is that people just aren't engaging in politics in the way that we would want them to. Now, if we've got that radical agenda, then people will start engaging. They will debate those issues again. They will come out with their own ideas. And I want to see more participation in politics. I want to see more deliberative democracy, where people really do have a voice and a franchise. These are things we can do once we get into power. And also that brings greater power into our communities if we bring that into local government. And of course, we've heard the House of Lords mentioned. My goodness, what are we doing with Lords? It's 2022, for goodness sake. So great chance to get an elected second chamber too. So press on, keep fighting on this issue, because it really does matter. And I appreciate there's cost of living, there's the destruction of our public services, there's going to be pay, which is a major ticket item, pensions, all sorts of issues you're going to be debating at your conference. But unless we have a progressive and passionate Labour government to bring about those reforms, you're going to be in that place of battle time and time again. And that's why this motion is so important. Good luck at your conference.